Real intellectual powerhouse here is actually Xiao Wang, who would just have his mom cross-post his stats in the city square marriage.
People are posting their statistics on the street? Have you ever got to catch me putting a flyer of my dating stats on a street pole? Screw it, I'm turning gay, bro. So recently we were able to watch videos about South Korea, their underpopulation problem, even North Korea, and their many list of problems. And now I finally present to you the issues within the Chinese dating market. The Chinese dating market is cooked.
So at this point, there's no doubt that the dating market in China has skyrocketed to, I don't know how many levels of difficult there is.
Damn,
but it's pretty high up there. So not only has the number of single men drastically increased, but the amount of people who are now actively leaving the dating scene is on the rise as well. And
so just like other countries, people in China are not trying to, you know, mess with the men. Is it because the economy? PP size. Just kidding. That's racist.
I respect that, you know. You can always just leave.
Yeah,
that's always an option.
True.
Now, this has led to interesting moments where we actually get to see the effects of voluntary and involuntary celibacy affecting the wider economy. God, what a...
Involuntary celibacy? What is that? You're unintentionally not having kids? Is it because the dudes are so chopped or something? What? China, what we got going on, bro?
Okay, for example, because less and less couples are getting married each year, we see a decline in the maternity industry, which checks out. And whilst maternity the industry tries not to explicitly make the following connections, we know that more and more people becoming single has got to be the reason, or at least a contributing factor, towards why the pet industry is now slowly rising to a major part of China's economy.
What? So pets are a major part of China's economy because people are single? And don't get in the comment section and start talking about it's a dietary reason, okay? Because I know how some of y'all get, bro. People are gonna be like, oh no, it's because of the foods. No.
Much at this point,
they don't eat that in China like that, bro.
The dating scene has hit rock bottom. But when it comes to actually facing the issue together, the relevant stakeholders at hand, which is pretty much every single participant within the dating market, are not necessarily uniting their method of approach to tackle the topic of discussion.
Okay.
And this, of course, includes the percentage of the couples population who I know for a fact are dying to get a piece of this pie, which is actually none of my business, by the way. But y'all are scat, unless it's consensual. Regardless, the point of this rambling here is supposed to tell you that both dating market participants and wider Chinese society continue to hold the opinion that the problem should be addressed. But not everybody takes a...
Number of single men per 100 single women in China. I know y'all can't read this because I'm blocking it, my bad, but damn, so there's mad single dudes. Okay.
Same approach in how they participate within the dating market. As the old saying goes, all paths lead to Rome, but not everybody takes the same path. The second part is not the old saying, it's the first part, but like, you get what I'm trying to... Traditionalists, for example, often made up by a slightly more mature audience base, believe the solution towards fixing the dating market and the singleness epidemic is to repatch the arranged marriage meta, because it's one of the...
They still do arranged marriages in China, bro? I thought arranged marriages were out of style back in like the 1990s, bro.
Only services that exists where you get full transparency on what you're supposedly getting into. But the downside towards this method of approach is that you get very little say on who your partner is actually going to be. Personally, I think that's a little counterintuitive, because in the scenario where you rush into...
That doesn't make any sense, bro. I could never imagine myself marrying somebody without even knowing them at all. You're telling me my dad and mom have to meet them and then be like, yep, that's a good fit for my son? Bro, they don't know me all that well, bro. Like, what? Arranged marriage in 2025 is like the biggest scam ever, bro.
To a relationship where you haven't spent enough time and effort to get to know each other to the full extent. There are, of course, other issues as well that can arise, for example, like having a lack of trust within the relationship because you didn't spend enough time building it in the first place. And I swear to God, this is an actual complaint I've seen before. It's the fact that the agency or the broker offers no customer support hotline for when the relationship doesn't work out post.
Wait, is he being serious? Like, there are agents that do this? Are y'all out here with entire dating agents? Yo, how hopeless do you gotta be to need an agent to try to find you a girl, bro? Is that like... Are we serious? Maybe it's a thing. I don't know.
Fair enough. I mean, if you're going to make it a service, at least make it comprehensive. Idealists, on the other hand, are made up by a slightly more innocent and younger generation, and believe the solution to fixing the problem is, of course, reviving authentic connections. This basically just means more people need to take the initiative in putting themselves in environments where it can happen naturally.
Agreed.
Because honestly, it's actually pretty important to have the idea that fundamentally, love should happen when it's at the right moment, and romance should feel spontaneous and not forced. And whilst this is a great solution on paper,
I think when you're forcing marriage, bro, that's how you create like abusive situations or people who are just unhappy in the relationship. I know that's not like a genius take or anything, but dude, with the way people are doing arranged marriages, bro, what do you think is gonna happen? Of course people are gonna be in unhappy homes, bro. What?
But the method here adopts the assumption that everybody has great social skills and hobbies worth talking about.
That's true.
And has the mental and social capability.
Some of y'all I know, hey, in China, do the dudes out there not get play or something, bro? Do y'all not talk to women? I don't know. Y'all need to take some riz tips from me. Okay, what you wanna do is you wanna go up, Ni hao ma, you know? And then you're in there, bro. That's all you gotta do, bro. If you're on a mission, please make sure you sub to the channel if you're enjoying the video so far. New videos dropping every single day for the entire summer. Please sub up. Thank you very much.
Of striking up an interesting conversation with a stranger in a public space. Now, here's an interesting and extremely niche report conducted by Seoul and the University of Shanghai. It was a collaborative approach that found the amount of people that are finding it easy to socialize with one another is slowly decreasing with each
Majority of Gen Z is willing to socialize, but experience social anxiety while doing it. Hey, that's real though.
new generation.
After COVID, we got
Even when
cooked.
asked about how they feel doing it in their favorite hobby circles. Now, take what you will out of that information, but you got to remember one thing. All they did was just ask 3,000 people of their current user base, so maybe take it with a grain of salt. Now, somewhere between the middle, we have more
That's not
people
everybody.
adopting the realist build. Believe that love is possible only through dedication and hard work towards self-improvement. Now, they don't make the mistake in idealizing romance, because love is part emotions and part logistics,
Right.
and as long as you put in the work, you will get your reward proportionally in return to what you have to offer. In theory. In fact,
Okay,
I guess
so what really
some
happens
people
then?
watching right now would agree to this idea and would hold their ground and stand firm in subscribing to this idea. Well, that's until you hear about this story. Meet Li Hua, a 25-year-old top 50 global university graduate with a stable job and income and ownership of property and car in the city of Jinan. Now, he was surprisingly having a little bit of difficulty finding a suitable partner despite being on already 10 to 20 dates. And the counter-argument...
Damn, 10 to 20 different dates, bro? I feel like, bro, if my field goal percentage was that bad, I was going over 10, over 20, I'm probably gonna quit, bro. I'm just gonna become asexual if I'm you. That's just me, though, bro. 10 to 20 days and you can't find one partner? Maybe you're the problem, bro. Actually, I don't know. Let me keep listening.
Like these, which naturally presents itself in the eyes of the realists, is that there's always a magic number to your problem. Because the nature of statistics tells us, supposedly, that the easiest way to increase the likelihood of something happening is to rinse and repeat within your realms of possibilities until it happens.
Right.
But my carefully curated counter-argument to that is, of course, Li Hua's story happened 11 years ago. He's still single. Now, I actually wasn't going to include the full story, but upon reading his full experience, I'm not joking when I say this is possibly the
Wait, what?
He's still argument to that is, of course, Li Hua's story happened 11 years ago. He's still single.
You've been on 124 blind dates in 8 years and you're not successful in any of them? Bro, the problem is going on blind dates. Why are you going on a blind date? Like, the whole thing of a blind date, I thought it was only done for like content purposes, bro. You're doing blind dates, what are you really expecting to find, bro? They don't know you.
No, I actually wasn't going to include the full story, but upon reading his full experience,
Okay.
I'm not joking when I say this is possibly the biggest L I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah,
in
it's
my
up there.
25 years of life. Okay, so Lee actually went on his very first blind date back in 2014, arranged by his family through a matchmaking service. Now, this is how he documents the interaction, okay? He still remembers that first girl clearly. In his words, she was stunning.
Okay.
Like influencer level beauty. And
He
that's
found him
without
one.
filters, just naturally gorgeous.
Okay, no plastic surgery, no crazy makeup or nothing like that. You know, found him the one.
Now, the girl was actually a student counselor at the University of Jinan, which is where this man works. And apparently, she thought Mr. Lee was decent as well. But here's the twist. Lee chose not to pursue her. And
Why?
when prompted the question why, in his own words, he claimed that she was just too good. I felt like I...
Dude, so you go on hundreds of dates throughout the year, you find somebody that you like, you think she's fine, she think you fine, perfect match made in heaven, you're like, nah, I don't deserve her. What type of simpery is this? What do we even call this, bro? You
didn't
just
deserve
nah.
her.
He just want to be like world record for most dates without getting a girl. That's what it
Not
is.
only was she beautiful, but she was mature, ambitious, extremely capable in social settings, the full package.
So everything you wanted,
And
bro.
this is the line that sent me, okay? Being with her felt like I was a level 1 player going up against a max level boss.
This is an all-time fumble, bro. Max level boss, she likes you. This is not like as if you fumbled in the eyes of, I don't know, Kratos himself or something. You went against Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, bro. No, you had her right in your realm. Like, what are we talking
just
about?
Wasn't fair. Mr. Lee said meeting someone like that made him feel like she was out of reach, way out of his league.
That makes no
since
sense.
That date onwards, Lee stopped being skeptical of matchmaking. He thought to himself, if that's the kind of person I can meet, maybe it's worth trying. Lee then went on to complete 123 more matches, spending an estimated range of 50,000 to 100,000 yuan throughout the process, with no success.
And you gotta spend that much bread to go on dates with other girls and you're not hitting? You should have took what you had when you had the chance. Now I don't feel bad for you no more at all, bro.
Now, I want to be honest with you here. If this was my dating career, the only way you can possibly find this out is if I physically died and someone left it in my will. This might just be the biggest fumble in history.
No,
then,
no,
of
not
course,
might.
we
It
have
is.
The materialists, who don't exactly fall into the spectrum in a traditional sense.
Okay.
Because like the idealists who also chase a concept of romance, or a version of love that perfectly aligns with their desired lifestyle, many materialists would argue that they're just being honest about the harsh modern certain realities, especially
I
in
don't
the
know, bro. You wanting a golden Bugatti is not any representation of the real world, lady.
dating economy where the cost of being in a relationship has just never been higher. And of course, when you then follow up with the question, bro, what does that all mean? Most of them will just tell you they want someone who's hot, rich, and loyal. The reality, of course, when it comes to seeing die-hard materialists in action, they usually just reduce their cutthroat criteria of hot, rich, and loyal down to a more realistic criteria. 2 out of the 3. That's all you get. And you know, my advice here is that if you do come across these type of people in your social network, instead of contemplating whether or not they're a good demographic of people to involve yourself romantically with, you can always just become their good friend instead, because whilst they don't always have the most romantic relationship, they always have the best stories to tell.
Yeah, materialistic people, yeah, they're probably gonna use dudes for their money and they'll tell you all about it, I guess.
I love you guys. But personally, I think it's kind of unfair to hold an entire single population, whether fragmented or not, collectively hostage, and then demand a magic solution from them. Because most of what's killing the dating market today are things that no one group of people or demographic.
See, okay, this is what I was waiting for, because I'm thinking like it's more of an economical issue, right? It's gotta be.
Fix or reasonably control. Because whilst things like gender imbalance, rising cost of living, looks inflation, consumer dating culture, dating fatigue, and overall distrust towards the opposite gender, declining social skills amongst men in the Zoomer population,
this is a lot of things,
all be attributing factors towards why people are becoming single.
Right?
We all know that the real reason is simply because the best dating show in history hasn't dropped a decent season in years. So I think in order
yo, you gotta be trolling, buddy.
to understand the current state of the dating market, we'll need to first begin simplifying the problem.
Okay.
And to achieve that, you can kind of think of the willingness to escape single life as a spectrum that you can stand on. For example, people who care about being single and people who don't. With people who care about being single likely spending the most amount of time and effort to escape their current situation, whereas people who don't spend relatively much less effort and urgency to escape.
Overall, example, I guess, so is he saying that in China, overall, like there's a lot of people who just don't care about finding love? That's just what it is? Like, are just Chinese people just going asexual? If that's the case, you know, more power to you, you know, 4B movement, things of that nature, right?
Sitting at one end of the spectrum cares a lot about being single, then he may potentially be willing to spend up to 300,000 yuan a year.
That's actually crazy to me, though, that you gotta spend money for a service. It says premium matchmakers is a known VIP service if you want to meet 20-year-old millionaires and celebs. Okay. Yeah, so you gotta pay for a service. It's almost like Tinder Gold, bro.
Just to sign up to a VIP diamond tier matchmaking service in hopes that he'll be.
So I guess we kind of have this in a way.
He knows that statistically speaking, the chances of finding a good and successful match in the short run is very low. But he does it anyways because he fears nothing. Then Xiaohong, sitting on the other end of the spectrum, who is generally unbothered or nonchalant about being single,
doesn't care,
would more likely find the idea of meeting someone naturally by spending most of her time in social or hobby circles she enjoys to be the right play. But we all know the real intellectual powerhouse here is actually Xiao Wang, who would just have his mom cross-post his stats in the city square marriage market.
People are posting their statistics on the street. I'm 6'2", 200 pounds. I drive a nice car, have a nice job, I have a nice income. Come date me? Bro, is it that down bad? If you ever gonna catch me putting a flyer of my dating stats on a street pole, a lamp post outside, screw it. I'm turning gay, bro. No more pursuing women.
Market and all relevant social platforms and wait for the results to come in themselves. And of course, when we're on the topic of dating and marriage and parental influence, the same research that we talked about earlier, the one with University of Shanghai, suggests that parental pressure is still one of the biggest influencing factors when it comes to shaping children's views on dating.
Yeah, because it's like, bro, if you're a parent, bro, and you're looking at your kid and they can't get no women, you're like, bro, why are you still homeless, bro? Like, shame on you, man. It's like, if it gets to a point where you're feeling shame for your parents, bro, do better.
Now, this is actually a good statistic to have because now we can factor in parental pressure as a key driving point in the phenomenon we see in Chinese dating market today. For example, people who care about being single with parental pressure is more likely to participate in matchmaking and other fast-track dating methods because they have a much greater sense of urgency to escape single life and meet obligations. People who don't care about being single but have parental pressure on their backs could potentially either turn to dating apps or attempt to find meaningful personal connections through more organic routes like hobbies and friendship groups, or establish.
See, no matter what, I don't care how much pressure I'm feeling, bro. I'm gonna do this stuff. I'm gonna spice it up, actively seek it, but I'm gonna build my own circle, bro.
Communities in order to find the right partner. But it does.
Wait, actually, no, that was the wrong one. It's this one at the top right. Top right, there we go. Y'all can't see it, but there it is.
Hobbies and friendship groups, or establish communities in order to find the right partner. But it does run the risks of having no urgency, which can lead to the individual spending the majority of their youth in semi-serious situationships that doesn't lead to fruitful outcomes in the long run. Now, people who don't care about being single with no parental pressure, how does it feel? But of course, at the end of the day,
probably feels
another
great, bro.
Soft skill to have that translate into dating success is of course the ability to communicate your emotions clearly and concisely to the other party. So say what you mean. You'll do everyone a favor. And even though 62% of Chinese Gen Z respondents believe the concept of marriage is frightening, I think a tip that you can always remember to help you feel a little better is that how can you be scared of the concept of marriage when the issue of the singleness epidemic is not solved in the first place?
That's true.
Just so you know, if I'm found incapacitated in the streets after the release of this video, I probably deserved it. And of course, up to this point, there are people left that I haven't really covered, and these are what I like to call outliers of the dating market. Because whilst the singleness epidemic is a standard issue across dating market participants, it doesn't necessarily affect everybody to the same degree.
Right,
Some people are
I would
drowning in
assume.
love, while others are drowning in loneliness. I mean, you're both technically drowning, but only one of them actually wants to die. So from the male side of the outlier spectrum, we have people who can successfully pull off the Jackson Wang haircut. In fact, the whole spectrum might as well just be called.
So if you look like this, you getting all the hoes, bro. Hey, for all my people who are 100%, you know, Asian, you got straight hair, yo, get this cut, bro. Go to China and you'll be successful. That's basically what it's looking like.
How much do you look like Jackson Wang?
You look like Jin from Tekken, bro. Am I tripping?
Of 1 to 10. 10 is single because he's literally Jackson Wang, and dating will only negatively affect his generational mark. On the female side of the spectrum, and perhaps the true apex predators of the whole dating market, who's never really suffered from the singleness epidemic, is the tier 1 city rich single auntie with no kids. And whilst the individual's initial reaction to entering this kind of relationship may be to question whether or not it's actually real love, the feeling will quickly fade away after a few sips of your $15 milk tea riding shotgun in her Bentley Continental. Now, despite being on top of the food chain, there are still issues that plague the Ivy League equivalent of daters within the Chinese dating market, and that is the concept of expectation to reality. And this essentially just refers to how many people that actually exist in the population that satisfies your criteria. For example, if you're satisfied with somebody with an ordinary job, not too ugly, and has the ability to support a family,
a normal
that's
person,
approximately 80% of the population. If you're looking for an attractive and well-established individual with a high-paying private sector job and a well-established social circle, the figure then sits at roughly 10%. If you're looking for a bilingual, well-groomed man with wealth, power, and status,
that's what I'm looking for.
It is so untouchable, even celebrities cannot hold a candle to him. Please feel free to submit your application to the state council. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Okay, well, that was how the dating market is cooked. It was crazy to me to hear about how there's like agencies and the whole arranged marriage thing. And like overall, okay, there are people who are very, very lonely, and then there are people who are drowning in love. So there's opposite sides of the spectrum. Overall, honestly, it doesn't even seem like it's that cooked. I mean, aside from the arranged marriage thing, there could be a lot worse. Like in, for example, South Korea, like low birth rates and stuff. At least y'all aren't having those type of issues where like the economy is so bad and you work so much that you can't even find any love. Like it seems more like just people are making the subconscious choice or conscious choice to either stay inside or not stay inside. And some of them are cool with that. Some of them face pressure from their parents. But overall, like Gen Z, loneliness, and we suck at socializing, you know? So seems like China's kind of facing the same issues as American Gen Z in a way. But that's going to do it for today's video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Join me for this link in the description. With that being said, it's Love You Law. I love you, and I'm out.